Okay. All right. Welcome back, everybody. And let me find my PowerPoint. There we go. Right. So we're without Jim, I think for one more week, right? Chip, if I recall, he's out this week, last week and this week. I
Yep.
think back next week.
Jim is touring in places unknown.
That's right. That's right. He deserves to be doing that. So we'll kick it off with some wins. Anyone want to kick it off with something they might have had happen in a positive way this week?
I know there's at least one person that should. I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Oh, okay. Okay, bashful, Chip.
No, I'll share. Thanks, Chip. We had a win, you guys. An
All right.
awesome
You know.
Sattlers win, like a actual legit pure SaaS Alerts win, which is so cool. Um, I've talked about this a lot and I regretted it yesterday after I thought I realized what had happened. I feel pretty invincible in Canada because if credentials are handed over, all the attackers come from outside of Canada, and we block all countries outside of Canada. Anybody traveling for holidays has to put in a request so that we allow access. And yesterday we had a compromise about 9 in the morning. We didn't see any alerts on sign in, which we normally do. We saw a email rule created, and they never get that far in our tenants. They never create an email rule because they are blocked at conditional access policies. They can't get in. They're not coming from Canada. So I thought, oh shit, here we go. The IP is coming from Canada. Game's up, party's over. The attackers are now coming from Canada, and we actually have to stop being so lazy. Turns out, though, after a long day of investigation, it wasn't a concern. You guys caught it. Email came in from SaaS Alerts, told us about the rule. Two of the rules fired. One was creating a rule outside of approved location. The other one was risky rule created. I think it's called with where it's just a semicolon. So we're alerting on that one as well. Came in from you guys. Rocket Cyber brought it to us as well and gave us the IP address. Kayla and I were sitting here having a little chat, and she looked at it and said, "Oh, that user creates rules all the time. No big deal." And then she said, "But it says Frankfurt, so that's a little weird." So I turned around and started looking into it, and yeah, it turns out that Microsoft identified the IP address as Toronto, Canada. SaaS Alerts, using whatever country checkers you're checking, saw it as Frankfurt. So Microsoft allowed it through the conditional access policies because they misclassified it as Canada. And we wouldn't have seen it if we didn't have SaaS Alerts double checking and identifying it as Germany. So yeah, they got in, they created a rule. We punted them out pretty quick, so no damage done, but pretty wicked to see it in action. And guess what Tina did? Actually finally turned on respond rules for the first time since putting SaaS alerts in place. Hey! Or instead of just alerting, I've set at least those two rules to do something because hey, we need it now. There's my
That's
win.
You needed
that's
it since
awesome.
day one, Tina.
What's that?
You needed it since day one, but better late than never.
Yeah, well, we're pretty fast, so I'm the sock. I'm all over it. But yeah, it's there's ones that I went back in there and went, okay, I can turn these, I can flip these now. But we've just had so much time to deal with alerts until I saw that happen and I went, okay, SaaS alerts would have been faster than Tina if I had let them.
And so, Tina, who's the SOC team member that you have that works from, 5 o'clock p.m. till 5 a.m.? I'm just curious.
That's Mark Geary.
Ah, okay.
I know, Chip, but normally, or up until this point, we haven't seen anything come from Canada, so we've been pretty lucky. It makes it really easy for us. But I spent all day yesterday just reassessing that situation and diving back into SaaS Alerts, because some of you know that I came on board hot and heavy many, many months ago and watched every video that Ben has ever put out and put every rule in place and dug into Unify and Fortify, and was really focused on that mission. And then I haven't touched it since because I've been so busy. So now it's time to come back and focus, and I'm going to have a lot of questions and a lot more contributions as we dig into it and look at the new tools and start putting stuff in place. But pretty cool. I was pretty excited to see that. I love this shit. I love having, you know, something to work on, to improve on. So I was pretty pumped.
That's fantastic. The funniest part though, Tina, is what Ben just said. When you're like, I watched all of Ben's videos. Look what he
There you go.
That was a long time ago, but I don't like I like doing things myself. I'm a little stubborn. So yeah,
Oh, wow.
dug
But
into it.
Tina, I was on the phone with Dave Monk this week, and he's like, we're talking about, just doing some debriefing on Write a Boom. First thing is like, and I met Tina, and man, like, I'm like, okay, we'll talk about Tina. Tina, you're becoming this celebrity within the channel.
Dave was my BFF. I'd never been to an event before in my life. I was so, you can't tell, but my heart when I talk on these things is just racing. I do not like doing this. And he was the first person I met in the pre-day at the escape room.
Okay.
And we got talking, and he just is my Write a Boom BFF. So he's my OG, first person I met. Took me under his wing. It was pretty fun.
Very cool.
Great.
Chip, I think we need soaring with SaaS Alerts shirts. Let's get new shirts, because that you guys are a SOAR. And I think those would, go well. Instead of that cover your SaaS, soaring with SaaS.
I like it, Andrew. I think I'm going to throw that into Gemini for a new design and see what we pop out with.
Very
And,
cool. The fact that you like it, can I leave now? But like George Costanza, I'm done for the day.
I didn't get to read all the comments, but there's some comments about, with VPN, anybody can pretend to be Canada. Yeah, I'm not stupid. I know this. But up until now, no attackers have come through Canada. So credentials get handed up and bam, 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 bam. They're coming from all other countries, but they're not coming from Canada. Yes, I'm very aware of how easy it is to get around that, but they're just not doing it on our tenants yet. And yesterday I thought they were, and I thought, okay, here we go. But again, it wasn't even that. It was misclassifications on Microsoft's part, and I've got a ticket, so I'll update you guys next week and see what they have to say about that. Because we also didn't get any risky sign-in alerts until midnight last night. Lighthouse didn't make a peep until midnight last night, and that was anonymous or not. I don't know how you say that one. And the anonymous token, which isn't even related to events that occurred. So it should have at least triggered on Fort St. John, and then, other side of Canada logging in within seconds as well. So you know what they say, probably nothing. They probably just wait until logs are gone and then say, sorry, we can't help you, which is what they did last time.
they being Microsoft?
Yeah.
You're throwing shade at Microsoft?
Never, Chip.
Or never. This is similar to their remote access feature that we talked about last week, Chip.
Yeah. Yes. RDP feature, not a glitch.
Exactly. All right. Way to lead it off, Tina. That's really good one. Who's got another one? Anybody? Chip, anything exciting in your world this week?
Yes, but nothing that I would qualify as a win. This has been a very busy 2 weeks in the AI world, which is where I spend most of my research time these days, and I've had a lot less sleep than usual. So there's an awful lot going on. Kind of amazed at what both Microsoft and Google have pumped out this week. For the uninitiated, each of them have really kind of completely rolled out a full platform now for AI developments and agentic AI, all stuff that's being done already by other collections of products, but they're consolidating. I look at it very much akin to like the early days of the Visual Studio platform, and Google's early developer platform, where both are vying for the engineering talent around the globe to jump into their stack. And that's how I would characterize the battle. OpenAI is a whole different discussion. Obviously, they're doing their own thing, integrated with Microsoft, but Microsoft and Google are actually working together on a couple of different protocols to make all this stuff come together even faster. So there's a we're still in wild, wild west phase. But we'll talk about this more in the coming weeks, Andrew. And this is one of the discussion topics. I want to base that conversation you and I had over, yesterday about. So we'll get into it.
So just out of curiosity, Chip, just so everyone has context, you've been spending a lot of time in AI, was your statement. Is it developer type AI is what I'm hearing? Just so we can all put some,
It started there. I'm now digging more deeply into what this means for the evolution of existing products and the changes, or revision completely, of existing products and creating new ones. So I kind of have a pretty good handle on the developer tool side of things. Leron and myself and his senior engineering team have standardized that across our environment now for our team members. That's, been a work in progress. You and I talked about this, Andrew, I think outside of the call, that it's taken us close to 18 months of experimentation and getting feedback from all of our different engineering teams to decide, okay, this is the stack that we're going to use, and the processes that we're going to build. But we have done that now, so we're not leaving that behind because there's an awful lot changing. But now I'm kind of shifting to lifting my head up and trying to look down the road and see what impact this is going to have, on the business side and on the product side.
yeah. Okay, makes sense. Stephen, just out of curiosity, you made a comment. It's reducing risk. The SOAR functionality, reducing risk in some assessments. Do you mind expanding on that?
Oh yeah, we just started working. We got we added control map recently, and so I've been finding ways to make use of it without adding everybody under licensing. And so just going through their pre-assessment in the portal, we're able to kind of check off like a stack review almost of sorts, and give the customers an idea of what they have and don't have. And even for customers that don't have a whole lot of a clients or cyber program or anything, just having SaaS alerts connected and turned on to respond helps reduce risk for some of those, centralized log management. There's some aspects of it that it helps cover, and bring automatic kind of proactive response to incidents, and helps reduce some of that risk, so we can show our clients like how much we're already helping them just by
Are you,
having it.
doing anything on the Fortify side with that too, though? Like showing them that where they are in terms of their posture?
Um, we will probably, I think we plan to get there. We haven't pushed a lot of the Fortify templates out yet. I'm still working on our strategy there, but now that we're active with managed SaaS alerts, I should get some should be able to get some good help there.
Good. All right.
Steven, I love hearing your comment because you literally just described why we built SaaS Alerts when we did. It was for that specific need. And this was for businesses, that a different company that I had built, before SaaS Alerts, and our other co-founder Seth, who none of you have ever met, or only a few of you. Um, he had built a different product, and we both needed exactly that. We were in heavily audited and regulated industries, and we needed to have a way to check boxes for how logs are being managed and evaluated. And there was no tool out there that we could find that was, not a, $100,000 a year enterprise tool. So that's why we built it. You literally hit the nail like right on the head.
Yeah, I mean, short of having a full-blown SIM, it serves a pretty good sweet spot for, are 80% sort of clients, and so I think we're going to have a real nice level of security for them, and I think it's a yeah, I mean with Fortify, yeah, it should be a nice way to avoid changes and identify skew and stuff like that. So
Yep.
Good, good, good. All right. Anything else, folks? Don't be bashful. All right. Miss Amanda, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Let
All
me
right,
just-
so I have a few more Fortify things to show for snapshots. So let me do this. Right. So can you see the Fortify dashboard now?
Mhm. Yes.
All right, so last week we talked about adding the benchmarks and being able to see that on the regular Fortify dashboard, on the snapshots dashboard, in anticipation of having Intune device configuration policies. We've made 2 additional modifications here to the snapshot screen, and this will be coming shortly. So you can see I have a green tag that lets me know that this snapshot is related to the conditional access policies. You'll have a different color once we have the Intune device configuration policies. So you can easily see which snapshot is which type. And if you use the search bar up here and type in conditional, it'll shortcut these to just showing the conditional. Vice versa, if you use the search bar for Intune, it'll shortcut the list for just Intune. So you can search up top here to filter for the type of snapshot that you're looking for. And when you are creating a snapshot, so when you click the import, and you are on the second step here, the snapshot details, you're going to have to select between which type of snapshot you want to import. We cannot import both at the same time. So you're going to have to select which one it is you're looking for. And then the system will go out and collect those policies that are that type and bring them in into the snapshot. So Intune device configuration policies are our next one coming. This is imminently coming. It's being tested on our QA environment, so this will be released very shortly. And that is it from my side.
So any questions on what Amanda shared last week or this week?
I can't believe people aren't blowing up about the Intune piece. We've had so many people ask for that. Like, you should all be jumping up and down.
I'm sorry, I was a little distracted, but I'm
No, it
glad my
isn't.
complete attention.
It is an awesome tool. We're taking care of it some other way right now, but it'll be great to have integrated into the whole managed.
I'm really excited about how this continues to evolve as more than just an alert platform. I really think it's time to consider modifying or adding more capability to your name, if that's
Well, that's why
still,
Andrew was bringing
Rebranding.
up SOAR.
yep.
Yeah, it is a SOAR.
SaaS Alert.
Yeah,
Soaring with SaaS alerts. Come on, guys.
as soon as we released Fortify, now coming up on 2 years ago, it was a SOAR, like at that moment in time. And we actually discussed should we go to market with that, but it seemed to be more confusing to the overall conversation to add yet another acronym to what we are and what we do.
Yeah.
But thanks for the recognizing it, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was going to talk about raising prices, Chip, but he didn't.
Well, that was Enrique. He just said that he's managing the Intune through some other tool, and I was going to hit him up offline and let him know that we'd happily have him pay half of what he's paying that other tool to us for the extended.
Yeah.
It's actually free, community based.
Wait a minute,
Oh, there you
Mike.
go.
Why is it okay to raise prices for me? I didn't talk about adding more value, more pricing to this.
Is that SIP, Enrique? What are you using?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Got it. All right. All right. Where are we here? Chip, you and I wanted to chat about. By the way, Leron's with us. Leron, what's going on? How are you? It's good to have you back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah. Oh no, Ben and I were going to talk. Ben, you there?
What I did. Yeah, I'm here.
You didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. So let me set the stage here, Ben, and we can kind of this is, by the way, we need your feedback on what we're about to talk about.
Yep.
So one of the things that we're hearing from not only PE-backed MSP owners, but the community. So the larger PE firm backed MSPs really, they have two budgets. They have conference budget and they have training certification and education training certification budgets. I'm having conversations with many of them about, what's the future of conferences look like. One of the big things they're talking about is they're, being scrutinized and budgeting for conferences. So they have one bucket of money for conferences, a second bucket of money for training, education, certification. I've done about 100 post-event interviews for Write a Boom with different MSPs, talked to our advisory council, and SaaS Alerts has come up a lot. The fact that it's got so much functionality now, the thesis was, wouldn't it be great if at Write a Boom there was a workshop with Ben and Chip, where they could train, you could become almost like a day in the life of working with Ben and managed SaaS Alerts, understanding how to create new IOCs based on threads, create rules, and et cetera, and all the ins and outs that someone with Ben's expertise has. At the end, you have a test and get a certificate, so to speak. So let me pause there. Does that genre make sense, first off, to you all? And do you have any questions on that genre before we go into maybe what Ben's thinking and then your feedback on the training, what you guys might want to see in a course like that, in a workshop, 2.5 hour workshop? Comments, thoughts?
I would love to have application. In other words, here's an example of an attack and how these elements build up to that, and how that might, if you were to think about the MITRE ATT&CK framework and building out how these cover those different areas.
Got it. So what's the tradecraft in this attack, and
how is SaaS Alerts covering those areas?
got it. Very interesting. Leron, can we have a full MITRE ATT&CK mapping with all of them by next week in SaaS Alerts?
Yeah, it sounds like something we could do in about 15 minutes.
Hey, with AI, you could do anything later on.
So Ben, how about I hand it to you, what you've been thinking about, and see if we can get some feedback here. But Andy, thanks. That's helpful. It really is.
Yeah. If anybody else has anything they want to volunteer, I'm happy to listen. Even if you don't want to speak up, you can always shoot me an email. But something similar actually to what Andy was talking about is what I envisioned as presenting a particular attack and showing our partners how to identify things that SaaS alerts can be used to detect, and also maybe going farther to say, hey, here's a list of news articles. Which ones do you think we could use respond rules to detect? How would we go about determining what those attack vectors are and creating respond rules, creating IOCs? Then also covering a little bit about Fortify, and I know Unify is making some pretty big progress too. And so basically just kind of covering the entire platform from A to Z and making sure nobody has any questions by the time the course is over with.
Yeah, and by that time, Leron, I'm curious what one of the things Ben just said, like IOCs. Do you think we come February we'd be able to, like in a workshop, be able to share? It's like, hey, I created I see this particular IOC. I want to publish it. I'm going to anonymize it, but I want to share it. Do you think we'd be able to kind of route that by that time.
February of yeah, we plan to get that out in the next few months, so it should be ready to go.
Yeah, because that kind of stuff would, I think, be really beneficial. Like, hey, we're seeing this. You know, we handle this type of vertical, we're seeing this type of attack, we're seeing et cetera, et cetera. You know, hypothetically, Andy, I'm in the East Coast, I'm seeing healthcare providers, I'm seeing a threat with like this, I share it, right? Now you can pick it up and run with it.
Yeah. But basically just a deep dive into every single module, and I don't know. Maybe if it gets really technical, if there's some API stuff in there.
Yeah,
But we'll make it fun too, guys. Depending,
Mhm.
if we have enough participation, we can divide folks up into teams, and we can present a series of events that
Mhm.
we know from experience, lead to a compromise, identify a compromise, and let those teams come up with their own IOCs. Use the tool set to
Mhm.
build how they would approach packaging that together into an IOC.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, be literally like a real-time tabletop chip.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is
100%.
going to be a tabletop, no question. We're going to try and do it with as much participation from attendees as possible so that, that's how people get the most out of it, right? It's not like us standing up there going through a slide deck and Ben sounding like somebody from one of the teachers from a Peanuts cartoon.
I
We'll
can do
get
that pretty well.
Yeah, you can, Ben. We'll get participation moving. Maybe even have some special prizes for the most creative approaches to solving the problems.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Write a boom t-shirts, write a boom bracelets,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Tina's in. A hug from Tina if you win. Um, who else? Anyone else besides Tina think it's a good idea?
I
No?
know, I know I've been asked before for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, would love to know if anybody has particular pain points that they ran into, while going through this journey that they think would be the public would want to know about. But yeah, as quickly as the platform is changing, I'm sure we'll have a whole bunch of different things and like new things to talk about by the time it rolls around.
Yeah, and Ben, do you think with integration with KSIM also maybe doing some like maybe deep dive, like looking at a few of the logs and saying,
Oh yeah.
like a day, maybe a half hour of it's really like you're in the SOC, right? And being able to identify um, different types of packets and things like that.
Oh yeah. With all the events that we're going to be getting from KSIM, I mean, we'll be able to expand the sort of like IOCs pretty dramatically.
Yeah, yeah.
Chat's hilarious.
I know chat is hilarious.
I have one more thought around this, and that is with all the advent that's happening this week with AI chip, incorporating that into this training about how we can leverage that amongst SaaS alerts. I think that would be a real value add.
Completely agree.
Good idea, Andy. All right. So, Chip, since we had so much participation in that conversation,
Yeah, I know. We got a quiet group this week.
I know. Well, I think it's after lunch in a lot of areas. I think, there's a lot of tryptophan and,
Well, I think people also checked out for the long weekend already.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see what Sam just said. This looks juicy. There's a real world attack we've seen and then going through steps of identifying building houses. Yeah, if you take a look at what Sam just wrote, Chip, I think that's really what
Yep.
you were just
Yeah,
saying.
exactly what we're describing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, by the way, really similar to what we've done with Bo, with backdoors and breaches.
Yep.
And it's you know, Yeah, Ben, you just literally, as I'm
Yeah.
saying, wrote it.
We need something like that for SaaS alerts. This is what we need to do. So to come up with a deck.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
We've talked about
An expansion pack.
Why not?
Well, no, I mean, look, we can still make that happen, I think, Chip, right? I think we've got some credit and stuff. Maybe we go down that path.
Could be. I think it's a we'll see. It's a tall order, at least in terms of my ability to participate in creating that, but it is a good idea. I mean, I'm happy to acknowledge that the whole idea for this pre-day workshop is somewhat shamelessly ripping off what we did with Bo 2 years ago. I mean, it was a fantastic workshop, and we're going to be
Yes.
certainly
Yeah, that was
formatting
awesome.
around it in a similar fashion. Whether or not we're going to have an actual card deck to hand out to everyone and take people through, rolling their dice and getting to make selections based upon that, we'll have to see if we can get that far. Maybe we'll come up with something completely novel. Maybe we'll ask, one of the AI agents to just design us a game and see where it goes. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, we can roll the dice downstairs because we're in Vegas, Chip, but we can, if it doesn't happen upstairs.
Yep, I hear you. Not me, but I hear you.
Because I was gonna say, because I know how much you love that.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we get some participation on this one. Chip, Chip and I message each other all the time. He had a really intriguing question. And so he's like, where do you guys, well, let me let you do it, Chip, where you were thinking. I have some thoughts on this, but let me kind of let you kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, what I suggested to Andrew is that in the next couple weeks, probably not next week, maybe the week after, um, I'd like to actually turn this call away from its standard format of talking about mostly security, a lot of SaaS alerts, but some other security things, and turn it to the MSP business side of things. And this ties into the earlier comments about how I'm starting to evolve my thinking around AI. I have a strong suspicion, and I bet you guys do too, that over the next 5 years, there's going to be massive and sweeping change in the MSP business model. And I'm very interested in talking that through, and so interested, in fact, that I wanted to discuss the notion and ask everyone if they'd, put some thought into that before we get to whenever Andrew decides to make that a highlight of one of these calls, so we can really talk through, how you see not just AI, but general business climate impacting everything from, headcount in your MSP. I think there's already been an impact for those of you who fully use our stack, that you either need less people on the security monitoring side because Respond does it for you, or you keep the same people, but they're doing other things. You got, one-man band MSPs out there that are building a strong business, like Enrique with his hand up. What's that look like moving forward? Andy, what do you see happening in the medical realm? All of you guys that are in a pretty well-defined vertical, what do you see happening with your business there? So, I'm interested in, frankly, picking the brains of those of you who are participate in this call, to help maybe validate what I'm thinking in the back of my head about where we should be heading from a tools perspective, and a products perspective. What you guys think is going to remain relevant, what tools might become irrelevant, and how we can continue to help you with the other half of our business, which is helping to make MSPs profitable. So that's the discussion that I'd like to focus maybe at least half of one of these calls on in the coming weeks. And if we can get some pre-thought into that, it could be really, really beneficial, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, it's great. Andy, go ahead.
Chip, I was talking with an MSP who uses SaaS alerts, wasn't aware of the call, isn't aware of all the features around managed SaaS alerts. I think building an awareness and talking about that in this call about how these things how all the Kaseya modules plug in together to drive a security and enhance profitability. I think that's missing from just this type of call. Now, it'll change your audience for sure.
Yeah, and we can have Pat Sullivan chime in on that piece of it. but I'm also not focusing this on just Kaseya and SaaS Alerts. This discussion, I want to be completely open to anything and everything that's crossing someone's mind. The purpose of this call and the community we've built here is not for us necessarily to be promoting our own products. I mean, we can't
Okay.
avoid that to some extent, but we got a lot of good thought leaders that participate in this every week, and I feel that we'd be foolish, or I'd be foolish, not to try and pick all of your brains for where you see things going. I haven't been an MSP for 2 decades now. I started out in that realm, but I've been building software products for a long time. I may have lost some perspective that I need to rehear and regain, especially in the context of what's coming in the next half decade.
I got a comment, Chip, but go ahead, Enrique.
I just think this is last week at the conference I was at, it was a topic where I saw a lot of, I'm going to say medium, 5, 10, $20 million MSPs or large MSPs compared to me, not using any type of AI or automation. No Roost, no Thread, no ticketing assistant, no GPT. And that was really shocking. Then there was an 80 million, a 40 million, 80 million, $100 million MSPs, and they were all using all those tools. So I think the shift, and not just to be a one-man show, but to be more efficient, to be more reliable, and be more consistent in your outcome, you definitely need to use tools like we use Thread for ticketing, and their magic agent we use from such basic things as someone complaining that we're blocking a website, and we'll automatically respond to them, letting them know if they had a pop-up from DefenseX saying Google ad blocked. That was the reason, just to scroll further down, and we'll give them a link to an example of what the web page looks like. So they scroll further down and click on the link below, to even summarizing SaaS Alerts ticket, Rocket Cyber tickets, which to me, they're not in plain English for me to simply understand. So we recap every SaaS Alerts ticket and Rocket Cyber ticket. And in plain English, it gives us outlining very specific things to let us know what we should look at the ticket and make a quicker assumption if we need to dig in or not. So this is definitely something that everybody, and not just in the MSP industry, in every single industry, I think automation and AI have a big part to play.
Yeah. So let me leave you guys with one thought. I have I moderate a CISO peer group, and there's this one platform in particular, but just give you a sense, the vCISO platforms, in my estimation now out there's probably about 1,000 MSPs or plus using them. So in Chip's kind of rhetorical question, the evolution of the model, I think in the conversations I'm having, we're seeing the conversation shifting very much for leading MSPs of, risk to revenue, supply chain conversations, governance conversations. And I think the model is definitely where we're going to have to evolve, Chip, and is having to be business-led consultants in this area first. The topics of just security, just gap analysis, tech is going to begin to not be a differentiator anymore. It's going to have to be about business impact is the bottom line, if that makes sense to you.
It does, and to put a more tightly defined wrapper on it, it's business impact specifically, not BIA the way we talk of it normally, but how are businesses going to be made more profitable by something that they all consider just an expense center today.
Yeah, absolutely. How is automation going to play a role as MSPs? How are we going to use automation as an enabler in their businesses? We're talking about it in our businesses, like whoever just brought up Roost. I think Enrique brought up Roost, right? And Thread and all these automation tools. But as MSPs, our job, I think, is very much going to shift to how we impact the client's not only risk profile, but how we help them in their automation and their journey. So a lot of things to consider.
That was an interesting comment, Andrew. I'm not gonna say anything else about it than that because maybe somebody will pick up on that for when we do talk about this. But that was a very interesting comment.
Oh, okay. I hope in a good way.
Can you repeat it, Andrew?
I don't know what I said, but
Andrew said how we, and the we I believe he is referring to is the MSP community, can help our clients with the implementation of automation and cost savings, whether it's AI or not, but what we will be doing for our clients in that realm in the future.
yeah, we're gonna have to get good. Like Sunil Yu, if you ever heard that name, he's coming to Write a Boom this coming year to do a speak on building data governance and least privilege models and LLMs. And we are going to have to understand that. We're not just, with all the things around automation and AI. Yeah, Andy, what do you thoughts?
I wanted to say that besides reading the book that Defense Matrix, he has a podcast on Spotify that talks about other applications for the Defense Matrix and explaining items to customers or to stakeholders that I thought was really valuable. I hadn't thought about applying to Defense Matrix that way, but I'm promoting his podcast.
He's brilliant. He talks about, if you really understand Sunil, and he's just such a great human being, he talks about the cyber defense matrix is a mental model. Chip, you can appreciate this. He talks about it. It's a mental model. It's not, just this one thing that I initially meant it to be. And he's now has all these different use cases and applications for this mental model. How he looks at the world through that lens. So
no question. I'm a big fan. We all have him to thank for SaaS Alerts success. He was one of our very, very early investors.
That's right. He was. That's right. All right. Let's see. Let me just move on here in interest of time. Got a few fun things to talk about this week. So let's start off with this. We talked, if we have time, I have some things to show for the week in cyber, but this comes from the Verizon data breach report. Chip, I don't know if I shared this one with you, but
no, not this week.
Yeah, this is pretty fascinating. So this was the first year that Verizon postulated that last year. They're like, maybe we should start looking at third party as a data set to breaches. And that, how significant was it? They didn't publish it the previous year, but they had the data. And the data was 15% were third party related. Many obviously related to things like MoveIt, vulnerabilities and things like that, software vulnerabilities, the third party, but it's not solely that. Interestingly, 1 year later, that doubled. So that's a pretty significant increase. So the reason I want to start off with this is think about that. Supply chain risk doubled year over year in terms of breaches. So let's move into why does supply chain risk matter and kind of the conversations that I help MSPs, have, they're like, well, we're trying to get our customer to do vulnerability management, and they're telling us, they don't want to do it or this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, again, your customers don't understand vulnerability management. They understand business. So let's look at just a few days ago, a big supply chain attack. And so if you're talking to Peter Green in the UK about vulnerability management, maybe a week ago, they probably wouldn't care too much, hypothetically, right? MFA and things that we think are important. However, lo and behold, they had a threat actor come in and their entire logistics system and distribution system is offline. They're a food distributor to many major retailers like Aldi and Tesco, and these are some of the UK ones. But more importantly, again, the conversation, if we think about business that we just talked about, Chip, what if you were having a conversation about, so what does it mean if you can't get your products to the retailers in time and get them in the bins? Well, look at the quote. Thousands and thousands of products are going to be literally spoiled. So this is the result of why threat actors are moving deeper into supply chain attacks, because it's maximum pain and it's maximum reputation damage. So any thoughts on that one, Chip, before I move on to the next supply chain attack that I have here for us?
Well, the first kind of meta thought I have is that it's interesting that we're talking about supply chain attacks in the physical world, where for so long we've been talking about them in the software world. Like it's the same terminology with two completely different definitions. So it's I'm trying to draw the correlation. You know, we often talk in cybersecurity about supply chain as a is reflected in the different tools that people use, the libraries they use, the vulnerabilities that are embedded in software, and how that moves from one product to the next. You know, for instance, the famous RMM hacks for everybody from, you know, Kaseya to SolarWinds, all were termed supply chain attacks. And now it's that same terminology is applying physically. I wonder what the differential is in the benefit other than just straight up ransomware of the physical supply chain attack. You know, what's the point of the disruption, and is it a different kind of actor? Is it more likely to be a nation state actor that says, "Hey, we want to mess with the food supply," rather than software products? I
That's
don't
a
know the answer to this. I'm just thinking out loud that, you know, it's something new in the news that has a slight shift, and I always ask why.
Yeah, it's a great point, Enrique. One second. It's a great question to ask the why, Chip, but whether it's nation state or not, there's one thing that's certain is it is maximal pain.
Hmm.
Right? It's one thing when it's just you, your company. But if you look at the kind of the shift in what threat actors are doing, right? Why are they going after healthcare? Like healthcare 5, 6 years ago, as you guys remember, threat actors had a code of ethics. Healthcare was off limits five,
Yep.
6 years ago. Healthcare, government, municipalities, and things like this are where the threat actors are really starting to target, because the ability to want to pay is that much greater when it's a hospital and lives are on the line. When it's Peter Green and company and probably millions of dollars of food is on the line, right? So Enrique.
Well, I think going to Chip's question, today they are based on their money. They're like when they crippled us, they're going after money. But without a doubt, if you start looking at nation state actors, they could disrupt food, medical, I mean, so many different things, like water plants, a whole bunch of different things. So yeah, today it might be money wise, but they're going to be weapons of mass destruction in a different way.
Yeah. Well, and you're looking, you bring up a really good point, Chip. If you start to look at, this is food, we talked about government, medical, what is it all? It's critical infrastructure, right? These are all the 16 critical infrastructures. We just mentioned 3 of them, and I'll give you number 4, which is last week's, which was Nucor. You ever hear of Nucor, Chip?
Of course.
Yeah. One of
Topic
the,
in one of the best books ever written,
which one was that?
Built to Last.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So Nucor is one of the largest steel manufacturers in the country. Again, just this is, I'm going to beat this drum, and I beat this drum when I talk to any MSP one-on-one about how they're approaching their sales. And again, the result of Nucor, you know, if you're sat in the boardroom and you're this MSP, if you were talking about, okay, walk me through your processes that drive your manufacturing of steel, your logistics of steel, like what are those systems? Who are the people? What are the processes that maintain that? Right. and, walk me through how you guys look at those systems in terms of, your risk posture, risk registers, things of that nature. I'm not talking about tools. I'm not talking about lack of MFA. I'm not talking about any of those things, right? They would talk to you about what's important to their business. Well, lo and behold, their systems were all offline. It's untold how many millions of dollars they lost last week, as a result of, again, of a supply. This is another supply chain attack,
Yeah.
another critical infrastructure.
Great business book to read, by the way. And it wasn't built to last. It was good to great.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Jim Collins.
Yeah, and their comparison company was Bethlehem Steel, where my father spent his entire career. Why Nucor survived and why Bethlehem Steel went belly up.
By the way, a good friend of mine, one of my college roommates, his brother-in-law is Mark Millett, who started Steel Dynamics. So, his sister has a few dollars, just so you know, Chip.
I'm not shopping.
No, Andy.
Well, I was just thinking through all of these pieces here, and they all hit fundamentally at our livelihoods, and just this making this more personal. This would be a great topic, Chip, to talk about on a call about how to take this information and really apply it in our communications with prospective customers and customers about why cyber security is so important. My question is, when is insurance companies going to stop covering these? Because, hey guys, it's just a cost of doing business today. Because I think that's a reality. I'm sure Nucor has the right documentation and policies in place, but they were still impacted. So when is an insurance company going to do like they do in California and say, hey, we're just not going to insure you anymore?
Well, this is a really good point, Andy, and this is, about really how well are those controls and policies implemented, and are they truly based on how that, if you did have cyber insurance, you better believe when the breach counsel is assigned to this case, he is definitely going to look at that deeply, right?
Yep.
First, and probably very early on, right? When they figure out what patient zero is, when the forensic team gets in there and figures out how the compromise occurred, they will definitely look at that. So
It's an interesting thought experiment, Andy, to run down. Nucor is a large public company. So to your point, you would expect that they would have every control
Yep.
under the sun in place. And yet, we see
It
this
happened.
happen over and over again with large organizations. And,
If you take it back to third parties, it could be anybody from, the target HVAC hitting the credit card pieces. I mean, you could just, it could come in from any point.
Yep.
this one's interesting, something we don't talk a lot about, but I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. I created a little PDF if you guys want it. Do any of you guys have clients that rely on their websites to do business?
Yes.
Okay. So this is pretty, and I built a DDoS PDF, Andy, if you want it. I'll show it to you guys. But this is pretty staggering. I mean, Krebs got hit in 2016. I don't know if you remember that, Chip, but this is a monstrous DDoS attack that they just got hit with. 6.3 trillion, or sorry, 6.3
Terabytes per second. Yeah.
terabytes of data. They back in the day in 2016, Akamai literally said we're turning you off. They had Akamai as their protector.
Mm-hmm.
Akamai literally is like, hey, we're shutting you down. We can't protect you during the attack. But just some things to consider. If you do have clients that rely on websites, these are just a few, and I created a whole spreadsheet or a PDF for you guys to kind of, Andy, you could use it as a kind of a lunch and learn.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
I'll send that over to Anthony or Ben with this deck afterwards. But just an interesting one, Chip, that we don't talk a lot about.
Hey,
That
can you go back a slide, Andrew? Because I want to highlight something in that text that you don't have highlighted, and it's this statement that the brief appears to have been a test run for a massive new IoT botnet capable of launching crypto, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if everyone's been following in the press and from CISA all the warnings about things like older cable modem devices and consumer grade routers that lots of small businesses would have. There's a massive quantity of IoT devices that are out there that somebody somewhere has figured out a way to tie
Mean
these together.
TP-Link? Who would have thought?
Yeah, exactly. It's not just them though. It's more. I just highlight how important it is, especially when I was an MSP. Maybe this isn't true for anybody in this call. We would walk into a small 20-person company and they would have exactly that, a D-Link router sitting there with everything plugged into it that no one had ever updated or done anything with.
Or an
That was
AT&T
20 years
modem.
ago.
Yeah.
What's that?
Or just an AT&T modem.
Yeah, or Motorola surfboard or
Yep.
whatever. The importance of staying on top of that, and that little line that's almost a throwaway in that slide is to me the important thing. And we've talked about it on this call that the botnets that were built to spread viruses, decades ago, have been repurposed for this kind of stuff. So, interesting little tidbit.
yeah, one last one for you, and I'll let everybody run. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys caught this one. Did you?
Buy your crypto now.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. Talk about another,
It was
critical.
human, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. This was a someone in customer service being bribed by the threat actor, and it went on since December
Wow.
that they finally figured it out. So you talk about the comment before was Chip, I think you said, well, you'd think Nucor would have pretty much every security control and everything under the sun, and Coinbase probably did too. But this is an interesting one where they probably said, well, if we can't get in that way, how are we going to get in? Well, we'll offer somebody in the organization a ton of money.
Did you happen to see, I know we're over time, but it's worth pointing out for anyone that's still on the call. Did you happen to see Coinbase's CEO's response to this?
No, what'd he say?
It was brilliant. So he actually recorded a video response and he said, essentially, we have every control conceivable in place. Obviously, we screwed up in that we failed to screen an employee properly, or for whatever reason, they became the target of a bribe and the bribe was successful. But we are not paying this ransom, and we are paying $20 million to anyone who can tell us who the employee was and how the attack chain came through with the briber, with the attacker. He said, like, we're not going to pay it, but we will spend the $20 million to catch the people who are involved, which I thought was brilliant.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Wow.
Well, they just made millions of dollars with Bitcoin at 111,000 today, so it was easy for them to offer that.
So did Andy Rowe. Don't you see that set of Porsche keys hanging behind him on his door?
All right. Good seeing everybody. Have a fantastic one, and we'll catch you next Thursday. Have a great Memorial Day, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Bye, everybody. Have a good
Nice.
long weekend.
Bye-bye.